let's talk about our first major AI project. And this is something internally that we've done over the past 6 months, and this is actually live and operating in our environment right now. And we've had a couple of challenges because the today us can look back and say, whoa, we didn't do that and that and that. I'm going to walk you through what that looks like. So our initial vision is we wanted to reduce the research time that was needed to apply the best service experience to every one of our clients. We want to make sure that every one of our clients, every user that talks to us, every change we make in a client's IT environment is done holistically, well aware of what the entire environment looks like, understanding about what the client is working with, understand what's important to them. We want all that context. And we build that context today within our service delivery teams by having geographic or vertical industry pods that are aligned to particular clients. So they have a smaller client portfolio and then give much more of a personal touch. But that's still a lot of information to manage, and it changes over time. There's no IT environment that's static. There are implementations happening all the time. There are security evolutions that are happening. There are management initiatives. There are business initiatives. And staying aware of all that down to the person that's helping you on the line at that moment is very challenging. Like, okay, so could we create a natural language processing system that can take all of these pieces together and our clients get even faster response with even more accuracy and better connection? We now understand the environment better. So when we started thinking about this, we were looking at, okay, well, great, there's a challenge associated with this because there's not one place that has all of the IT knowledge. Even within one organization, you've got at least in your own organizations, these 6 areas of IT knowledge, and there's 5 hexagons there, plus the delivery activity, all the things you've been supporting, all the things you are supporting, all the things you're planning on supporting, and all the support cases that come up with each one of those. In addition, for us, we also have another layer above this of best practices and procedures that we apply across multiple client organizations. And we have to be cognizant that those best practices and procedures probably apply 95% of the time, maybe even 99% of the time. But they take specific inputs about what's unique in a given client's environment so that they're reasonable and they are applied in a high expertise way to those clients. So we're really struggling, or we were struggling, and maybe we still are, with how to get all of this information to everyone's fingertips very quickly. And by quickly, I'm talking, I want these answers in less than 10 seconds. When somebody asks a question about one of these things, I would like them to have that information back. And that's faster than them going to those places and searching for it, while potentially someone's experiencing pain from an IT perspective. We're just trying to solve the problem. So we said, great, let's build a large language model based AI engine. We're not going to have to train this thing how to speak English. It's already going to know that. It's going to know how to parse that information, but it's got to have service delivery expertise. And we've got to teach it about what's the difference between a server and a network switch and an access point and a line of business application and SharePoint and Microsoft 365. We realized in going through this, we had a lot of tribal knowledge that was just kind of, you must be this tall to ride. And so we don't document those things, which turned into a challenge later on about the AI system and its ability to parse the questions that we're asking without that same context. A large portion of most organizations' knowledge is tribal knowledge. It's not formalized, it's not structured, it's table stakes. You've hired for it, but the AI system doesn't necessarily have that. So that was a challenge, and I'll walk through how we solved that through the vendors. We also had to make sure that whatever solution we put in place was going to be secure and private. Client IT environment information, that is security sensitive. We cannot risk any of that being leaked out beyond the Aldridge walls. We can't go outside of our service delivery teams. And ideally, we want to get to the point where we can have a system in place to say, the only knowledge you can access is the knowledge relevant to the client portfolio you're operating with. Granted, we have a distributed team where a lot of people support other people, so that's not something we had to put in the initial design, but it's part of the thought process. We didn't know enough when we started this to even be able to accurately quantify what the effort's going to be. So we looked at it and said, okay, let's talk order of magnitude. Would we be willing to spend at least $10,000 on this? Answer was yes. Would we be willing to spend at least $100,000 or up to $100,000 on this? The answer to that was yes. Would we be willing to spend up to $1 million on this? The answer was no. Okay, great. So we now have an operating framework. We're going to try to accomplish these things to the best that we can, spending no more than $100,000 on it. And we're actually about 60% of the way through that based on what our platform costs have been and our own time investment and the opportunity costs associated with that. So we built a three-phase plan for this. We said, great, we know what we want to accomplish. What are we going to do to crawl? Well, initially, we don't know if we're going to be able to trust the system. The system's going to take a lot of refinement and training along the way. So we said, great, internal audience only. We're the only ones using it. And we're going to go through rounds and rounds of refinement until we build a level of trust. We want the system to provide reasonable, comprehensive advice, cite its sources, tell us what's going on, explain the thought process, justify it. Imagine an AI system trying to satisfy technology experts that, yes, that's the correct answer. And then we'll move up to a walk stage, and we're only starting to approach that walk stage right now. There's some automated workflow capability in the engine now to where rather than a person having to go to the system to ask a question, we want the system to be able to look at the flow of information and say, whoa, insight, and it injects the insights into the flow. Still, we're the audience. And at some future state, there's this concept of a run where we have such high confidence in what the system is doing for a routine set of tasks that we might even let it start responding back with some suggested troubleshooting steps or some suggested resolution steps as soon as we receive a request, maybe even without a person looking at it, or at least a person saying, yes, approve, go ahead and send those troubleshooting steps. We're still going to get it over to a technician or an engineer, but maybe we can help the client even faster and we can get that user back to work even faster. So we turned all this into a written plan. We had target operating environment. We enumerated out what our constraints were. We enumerated out what our phase one milestones would be, what our proof of concept looks like. Great, we defined out what we want the interface to look like. We gathered some information from vendors. We refined the written plan along the way based on what we learned from AI. And we shared the written plan back with the candidate vendor saying, this is what we're trying to accomplish. We're looking for your feedback on, can you do this? Is this feasible within our operating framework and what we're looking to do and invest? You'll probably see the same thing when you're talking with AI. The first vendor I talked to, SWAT team. You spend all this money with us. We're going to have this in and out done. Great. You've got the requirements document. You guys clearly know what you want exactly. In 2 weeks, we're going to turn around your AI solution. And I was like, oh, this is a group that's going to do exactly what I tell them to do and nothing more. And it's only going to innovate to the level that I drive it and continue putting money in. And it's going to be a very difficult relationship and we aren't going to mutually benefit. So I talked to another set of groups, and these are the generalists where, yeah, they're doing a lot of AI development, but a lot of the AI development, especially natural language processing for the technology industry, is driven towards, let's build chatbots. Let's build self-service assistance bots so that when you have a problem with your internet service, that's the first thing that pops up on your website. I was looking for something very specific. We're an IT outsourcing provider. We work across a large number of client organizations and the questions get complex. So I was really looking for more of a partner on this. I wanted somebody that was going to come to the table that could share their knowledge and they were motivated to continue improving the product. And I could ride along with their continuing improvements on the product, but also participate and drive improvements on the products. So in our particular case, I found Neo, neoagent.io. Nick is the founder and CEO, and Anton is the co-founder and CTO. And I will say that I talk to Nick and Anton. Our team talks to them every single week, if not every single day. I talk to Nick and Anton about every 2 or 3 weeks, just so that we're course setting and we're aligning on what we're looking for. There's continuing investment on this. Neo specifically set out to build a MSP specific natural language processing engine based on a large language model. And they're agile, but they're full of AI experts, and I've learned some remarkable things about their development process and how they've done it. We did the initial implementation in July. We had data connections and we had this expertise internally. We were able to work with the Neo team. We then had our engineers on our side connect them to the data sources that we had in our environment. We went live in October 23. November and December, we've been going through product improvement. We've been doing user insight interviews because between October and December, our utilization tanked and users had an initial surge of interest and then it just fell off. All of our efforts right now are trying to figure out, do we need to course correct or are we coming in with the wrong tool? Now that said, It can do some amazing things. This is probably still me being a little bit enamored with it. Neo runs as a dedicated Teams channel. You don't have to install anything. It's just there. It's part of Teams, which we use every day anyways. And we've had to build skills and refinements with Neo. It now knows how to summarize the correspondence of a service request. It can even suggest resolution paths for a service request, or you can ask it about a technology topic, and it will give you insights about how we approach those things. We had to do refinements like when it pulls knowledge and includes that in an answer, it now includes hyperlinks at the bottom saying, I use these sources to answer this question, so that the person can click on that and go to the source of truth and go see where it actually was. And we've used that internally because if it gives a bad answer, we want to go look at the source and say, oh, we need to update that documentation. It's not most current. I've even had a couple of wow moments on this where I look at Neo's responses and I look at the types of things that people are asking, and I've forgotten at one point that it was a large language model and had rich natural language processing. Some of our engineers are actually using it as a natural language processing chat GPT aware engine just for us, where they're saying, how can I phrase this in a non-technical way to help this client understand there's no risk and they have these options and here's my recommendation. And Neo's responding back using our technical terms and the client business terms in an internal chat that the technician is able to then copy, paste it, and actually add their own edits to it. But it reduces the amount of editing time that we're having to do for that. It blew me away because I had never thought that Neo was designed to do that. It wasn't part of my original spec, but people are pushing AI to try to figure out what can it do? How can we leverage it more? And they're learning ways to leverage it that I hadn't thought of.